Tonight, the House Oversight Committee has expanded its probe into the federal government's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. The committee has issued a subpoena demanding that Epstein's estate turn over documents and records that span nearly 3 decades, including Epstein's last will and testament, all non-disclosure agreements, any potential lists of clients involved with sex trafficking, missed phone calls and visitor logs, financial transactions or holdings, plus calendars and all security and CCTV footage from a number of Epstein's properties, as well as the so-called birthday book for his 50th birthday that Glenn Maxwell put together and included a note bearing President Trump's name. Now, Trump has repeatedly denied writing the letter and has sued the Wall Street Journal, which first reported its existence, for defamation. The Epstein estate now faces a September 8th deadline to hand over those materials. The Oversight Committee will also sit down with former Trump Labor Secretary Alex Acosta. He was the U.S. attorney who negotiated the government's controversial plea deal with Epstein back in 2008. My deeply sourced White House insiders are here, Alex Eisenstadt of Axios and Semafor Shelby Talcott, as well as my legal source, former federal prosecutor Shan Wu. All right, Shan, so Acosta finally, I feel like we've been asking for a very long time, why is he not among those that they are speaking to? What information can he share when he sits down voluntarily with the committee?
Well, I think high on everybody's mind is this alleged remark he made that said Epstein was tied to intelligence, and that's why he wanted to give him a better deal for it. And then to really dive into what kind of evidence they had, why did he decide that this was a good deal to make? You know, all the questions you would ask of a prosecutor, typically you don't get to ask that of the prosecutor. You just have to accept what they did. But in this circumstance, he's going to have to talk about what his decision-making involved.
So Acosta, of course, Alex, resigned as labor secretary amid fallout from that sweetheart deal that he got in Florida as federal prosecutors in New York brought back the spotlight on this case almost a decade later, right? Here's what he told Kaitlan Collins 2 days before his resignation.
Would you make this same agreement today?
So these questions are always very difficult because we now have 12 years of knowledge and hindsight, and we live in a very different world. Today's world treats victims very, very differently. Today's world does not allow some of the victim shaming that could have taken place at trial 12 years ago.
Is the White House worried with Acosta now testifying before the committee that this is kind of getting a little too close to home?
Well, I can tell you this, that the Epstein situation may have died down a little bit when Congress was on its 6-week recess, but it's about to come back with a vengeance now that these Congress members are coming back to D.C. And here's the interesting thing with when you look at the Acosta situation, when you look at these other documents that are getting subpoenaed, House Republicans are going to have to make a really tough choice here, right? Either they're going to cross Trump and potentially face his wrath, or they're going to potentially face the wrath of their voters who want them to be very aggressive in terms of asking for more information. So that's part of the reason why you're seeing Acosta come out. You're seeing House Republicans are under pressure to deliver on the demands of their constituents, but they don't want to go too far because then you risk Trump's wrath. Shelby, it's very tough. It's a real delicate balancing.
It certainly is a line they're walking. Shelby, what are your sources saying about the significance of this particular interview?
Well, I think there is an acknowledgement inside the administration that this is not going away. It took them a little bit to get there. There for weeks, I was hearing from people inside the administration who really believed that this was going to die down. And when it didn't, there was an acknowledgement that they needed to do more to sort of satisfy the base. And so I don't think that anyone I have spoken to believes that there's going to be some sort of bombshell released out of what Congress is doing, but it is certainly going to stay in the news. It is going to ramp up, as Alex just said, and they're aware of that, and they're sort of just preparing for that reality, whether they like it or not.
I want to ask you about something, Shan, that President Trump put on Truth Social tonight. He says that he fired the Federal Reserve Governor, Lisa Cook. This is according to a letter that he posted online. It's something that he actually floated just a few days ago. Let's listen.
President Trump, you're going to fire Lisa Cook, the Fed governor, over her
Yeah, I'll
mortgage
fire her
fraud?
if she doesn't resign, yeah. What she did was bad, so I'll fire her if she doesn't resign.
The administration is accusing Cook, Shan, of committing mortgage fraud, and yet the Supreme Court has signaled that Trump doesn't have the authority to fire Federal Reserve officials without cause. Is just kind of accusing her enough?
Well, they're certainly going to say it's enough, and she's probably going to litigate that issue. I mean, if you're going to accuse somebody of the mortgage fraud as a crime, I mean, DOJ should charge her or say, usually, actually, you wouldn't even say we're doing the investigation, but they tend to at least announce the investigation. This is not DOJ opening anything. They haven't charged her. So as of right now, I think it's kind of a questionable for cause, but obviously that's what he's relying on, and I would expect her to challenge it. And this question of whether he can just at will get rid of members of the Federal Reserve would seem to be settled. So that's why they're trying to shoehorn it into the for cause. But it's definitely going to get litigated.
What is his objective here, Shelby?
Well, I think it's clear he wants more control overall. He has not made that a secret necessarily. He has repeatedly gone after the Federal Reserve for not lowering interest rates. It's very clear what he wants to do. I also think more broadly, this isn't surprising insofar as this Trump administration, this 2.0 Trump administration, is very clear on its goals and more willing to go further than they might have in the first administration in order to achieve those goals. You're seeing that on a whole host of issues, including here.
What are you hearing, Alex?
Well, look, it's pretty clear the administration is willing to use the instruments of government to exact revenge on people, to put pressure on institutions. Trump, the White House, they clearly want to have a lot of influence on the Fed, to put loyalists in there. And Trump is very zeroed in on the idea of lowering interest rates. And it's possible that that was going to happen anyways. They've kind of hinted that that might be coming. But Trump really is focused on the idea of lowering interest rates. And that's emerged as a real priority for him. He telegraphed that this move, he telegraphed a few days ago, as you just showed, that he was going to make this move tonight.
Yeah. President Trump also signed an executive order today, Shan, where he's putting stricter penalties on American flag burning, which is a really interesting place that he's going here. This includes a 1-year in prison sentence for those who do it, where there's evidence of criminal activity. Now, this has been decided by the Supreme Court that flag burning is protected speech. So how do you see this shaping up?
Well, on its face, it's blatantly unconstitutional what he's doing. But the loophole they're trying to find is this idea that it's part of inciting further violence or it's criminal activity. The problem is you already have statutes on the books for that. I mean, if you're inciting something, it's a separate charge. So he's trying to create this new charge about burning the American flag that's tied into other existing criminal statutes. I don't think it's going to work.
Does he think, Alex, that he can do this no problem, or what's the point here?
Well, here's the point of this is that Trump has showed throughout this second term that he is focused on cultural issues, ideas around patriotism, ideas around law and order, and this is something that Trump is really leaning into. And so whether this is legal or not is at best unclear. But Trump wants to get out there into the headlines, into the daily news. He wants to get out there this idea of patriotism and law and order. That's something he is pounding every single day at this point.
He also grabs onto these issues, Shelby, that they're popular, right? Even if they aren't maybe in line with the law. I think probably a lot of Americans aren't going to go burn a flag.
Yeah.
Right? Or they don't even like the idea of it. But it is protected speech. What he's doing in D.C., for instance, with the Guard, may be popular with not with people in D.C., but with a lot of people who are looking on. Why not tackle crime? He's finding these issues where he gets a lot of appeal, but he may be, when it comes down to it, not in the right place with the law.
Yeah, and he's really building on everything that won him the 2024 election, right? You're talking about crime, you're talking about social issues. Those are all topics that won him the election. And so he sees that he won the election based on X, Y, and Z, and he's going to continue that in this administration. Whether or not it plays out and ends up in 4 years actually becoming a reality is sort of secondary to the fact that he's doing this. But what's really interesting, I think, about the flag burning in in particular is I've heard from some conservatives who are concerned about this because they are worried that it will infringe on the free speech. Even as they say, I hate the idea that people can burn the American flag, this is horrible, they're seeing the flip side. And so there is a little bit of tension among some members of the base on this particular issue.
That's really interesting. They often decry their, as they see it, their speech being infringed on. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. Everyone, thank you so much. Really appreciate the discussion. Up next, Israel facing